Well, good evening, folks, and welcome back to the third episode of When It Was Real. This show focuses exclusively on the halcyon days, I love that word, of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation in the 1970s, which was, to me, a perfect time to grow up as a professional wrestling fan. Now, I'm just a mid-carder, but that good-looking guy with that classy jacket, he's a bona fide main eventer. He is noted WWF historian and author of the marvelous book, When It Was Real, Mr. Nikita Brezhnikov. Nikita, I have to tell you, I wait all week for Wednesday night so we can take another trip in the wrestling Wayback Machine and go back in time to when it was real, right? Thanks as always for being a part of the show.
And I thank you for that wonderful introduction, my good friend. And yes, especially the first two, they were great, but this is just something about it. Spiros Arion.
Yes, sir. Yep. So we're going to have a quick word from our amazing sponsor and then on with the show. Remember the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner Hour at the beginning of the show tonight. What heights will hit? On with the show. This is it. I'll keep my day job.
I'm going to march with the chicken. That's it.
That's right. Yeah, Foghorn Leghorn, who he kept his feathers numbered for just such an emergency. Remember that? Fortunately, he was great. This is Benny Scala, the one and only player. Folks, I am beyond excited to be co-hosting this new show, When It Was Real. And I am just as excited to be announcing our new sponsor, the Free Spirited Company. Free Spirited is a phenomenal old-school clothing company that specializes in short and long-sleeve T-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, graphic tees, heck, even yoga pants. These T-shirts are, to quote Rocky's manager Mickey Goldmill, a wake of art. Yours truly will be rocking the Free Spirited merch on each and every episode of When It Was Real. Not only are these shirts eye-catching, but they are very comfortable as well. Like what you see? Please go to shopfreespirited.com and use our special code MP20 to receive a 20% discount on all purchases. Again, that is shopfreespirited.com, and that code is MP20. As the poet laureate of the Monte The Pharaoh YouTube channel, I will leave you with this. If you like what you see, go buy a tee. Heck, maybe 2 or 3. When your friends tell you, hey, you look like the bomb, send them over to shopfreespirited.com. Well, Nikita, one last order of business before we start, which is a toast. And we're going to toast tonight to the great stars of yesteryear who left us with so many great memories that they made this show necessary. Salute.
Absolutely. Toast to love you. Yes.
Well,
I'm going to throw one more in.
Go ahead. Please.
To Jessie Bell. She's battling breast cancer. It's all over the net. I'm not revealing anything that's top secret. And please, on my page, there's a GoFundMe. I mean, she's a great worker. Tracy Smothers' daughter. She's worked for WOW as Tracy Jones. And I mean, I worked with her in Las Vegas a couple of years ago. A great, dedicated wrestler, but that damn C word always. I mean, it got me 2 years ago. So God bless you. We're thinking of you.
God bless. So, Nikita, so far we've gone back to back with 2 legendary babyfaces, Chief J. Strongbow and Pedro Morales. But tonight we turn heel and take a look at one of the premier villains of the 70s, the Iron Greek Spiros Arion, or as Ernie Ladd called him, Spiros Arius. I don't know where he got that from, but now were you a fan in '67 when the Golden Greek at that time?
Spiros Arion was not.
Okay,
not till 1970.
Got to tell a quick story here, and I'm gonna do like Special Delivery Jones. I'm gonna go to the well one too many times, but this is me in the November 1969 issue of The Wrestler, one of the Bill Apter mags. I was in the pen pal section. Believe it or not, it's hard to believe in 2025, but you could take your high school or not even your junior high, in my case, yearbook picture, 2x3 or whatever they were, fill out a little coupon, tell them your favorite wrestler, who you want for a pen pal, like, do you like good or bad guys, mail it in, a few months later, there you are. And there I was. Now, the interesting thing, though, is that it says that Spiros Arion is my favorite. How about that? No, it really wasn't. I loved Spiros Arion back then, but Bruno was my favorite. I think what happened is there were just so many Bruno. I mean, they can't have Bruno as everybody's favorite. So they gave me Spiros Arion. But here I am, 56 years later, talking about the guy. But per WrestlingData.com, he made his WWF debut on December 8th, 1966 at the National Arena in Washington, D.C., defeating I call him the grizzled veteran, Angelo Savoldi, who actually back in the day was a great junior heavyweight champion.
Yes.
We remember him, or I remember him in his later years with the singlet, but with the cauliflower ears. But back in the day in the 50s, the man held a monopoly pretty much with Danny Hodge on the junior heavyweight championship. And they had some wars.
You see him on a lot of the MSG cable casts from the 80s. He's the guy with the crew cut, short, heavy set guy. And he's usually like, hey, showing him, hey, it's time, come on, let's move it. So yeah, he had a big part of the company, and he was around for a long time, just like a production member there. But that was Savoldi, Angelo Savoldi, yes. And there's a whole line of Savaldis. Mario.
He was like
even Sal Sincere.
Oh, yeah.
He's in the family, and it's like, yeah.
Jumping Joe Savoldi, right?
Yep.
So Spiros was in the, all right, well, actually, I'm jumping ahead here. So after that was actually only 6 days after he lost the IWA World Heavyweight Championship to Ray Stevens in Sydney, New South Wales. We're going to have more about the IWA later, but really quick, the IWA was the Australian version of the World Heavyweight Championship. I think the name of the promotion actually was WCW, the original World Championship Wrestling, which was promoted by Jim Barnett. But I'm pretty sure December 8th was a TV taping because besides Pugliese, besides Savoldi, rather, get my Italians mixed up, he and Antonio Pugliese defeated the great Baron Mikel Scicluna and the Brute from Butte. I love Ray Morgan used to call him that, Smasher Sloan, to capture the WWF United States Tag Team Championships. Nikita, how did that happen so quick? Because, back in the day, all we had was the magazines. And I don't think if he was wrestling in Australia, I don't think anybody knew who this guy was.
No, but I'll tell you who probably did was Bruno, who was the talent aficionado of the WWF. If Bruno saw something, and he was a world traveler, even though he was the heavyweight champion, he would still make his tours and, take some time off to go here or there. And if he saw something that looked like, hey, you guys need to bring him in, then Bruno put in the word, and they were bringing you in. And he was never wrong, from what I know of things, at least. And it's like, yeah, but listen to that Pugliese again. He would come back later. There's another name from the 60s that ends up in the 70s, just like Parisi, it was like, and Cerdan is like, geez.
What did the Wizard call him? Greasy Parisi, right? Was that what the Grand Wizard called him?
Yes.
I think
the Wizard had his name.
That's another, we've talked about that. I mean, I liked him, but him and Cerdan were my least favorite babyface tag team champions. I just couldn't connect with the guys.
No, I had no love whatsoever, and I was so happy that the Blackjacks had defeated Barrett and Danucci. We loved Victor and Dominic, but then, of course, when Victor did his disappearing act, so then they give it to Barrett. And it's like, how the hell can you do that?
Yeah.
I mean, then years later, they wouldn't let Chief pick a new partner. They had to run the tournament. That's fine. But then when the Blackjacks got beat, because, they were in top demand all over the place, it wasn't just at Northeast. It was like, who, what? It's like, holy God.
Yeah.
And then here come the Executioners, who we sort of knew who was who at the time, but it was kind of like another mystery team. So there was a little bit of a drag in tag teams at that point. But anyway, yes, with Spiros in 67, he jumps to a tag team main event with Bruno. And that's why I'm going to stick with my answer. I think it was Bruno's push that said, bring this guy in, because it actually started June 19th. Bruno wrestles Tanaka in the Garden. he beats Tanaka, and then Arion draws with Monsoon, but that was the curfew. Then the next month, it's Monsoon and Tanaka against Bruno and Arion. They lose by DQ, Bruno and Arion. Then they bring them back the next month and they win. But there was no, just let everybody know, there's where the history is, but there was no heat, no turning, nothing like that at the time. Spiros Arion he finished his tour and went about his life until he returned later. But this is why, and we're going to lead up to it, it meant so much because there was a legitimate history. It wasn't just a couple of TV tapings and then
we're talking years. I mean, from the time we first saw him till the time he turned was, maybe 8 years. Not that we saw him steady, but Nikita, you brought up a very good point that I want to maybe elaborate on a little bit more. Is Bruno? Bruno was a great, of course, greatest wrestler of all time in my opinion, but I don't think he gets enough credit for all the talent that that he brought in. I know that he brought Tanaka in, right? Didn't he see him in Hawaii, maybe?
Yes, absolutely. It's like, look at this guy, son of a bitch. He's like a man mountain, and he does the martial arts, and he's just got that look. Well, everybody thinks he was in the James Bond movie, but that was his cousin that did the Odd Job,
right?
And but
he got in a couple of movies though, Tanaka.
In the 80s, he absolutely did. He was in many Chuck Norris movies.
Right.
Even Chuck Norris was like, what the hell do I do with this bastard? He does his shit, and it's like, come, you make me mad. It's like, geez.
But didn't he bring in Steele as well?
George Steele, but I'll tell you, I think maybe his biggest claim to fame, the Valiant brothers. Of course, he knew Johnny, and that was almost a legitimate Larry Zbyszko story, which he did know Larry too, without a doubt.
Right.
There's a real, like I call it, true fiction. There's true history there, but he knew Johnny very well too. But they put them together, and we'll do that another time because Mike Monty on the fabulous Monte The Pharaoh show just did a great interview with Jimmy Valiant. If you have a chance, go look at that. It's fantastic.
Yeah, very, very good.
Bruno and Dick the Bruiser were battling the Valiants in Indianapolis. Next thing you know, that May, here come the Valiant brothers, and it's like, what do you think? Bruno probably said to the old man, you got to get these guys up here. And that's it. Bruno was a great talent scout, without a doubt.
And even a relatively, at the time, little-known guy like Bobby Duncombe. I think Bruno, didn't he see him in Japan, I think?
Japan is what the story was, right?
And what a great heel he was. I mean, very underrated.
Underrated. We at this time of the year, we always talk about who's not in the Hall of Fame more so than who's in it. And it's like, sure, our featured man tonight, Arion, without a doubt.
No brainer. Yeah.
How can you not put him in the Hall of Fame? I mean, and Ivan Koloff, Ernie Ladd is in there, I believe, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, Ernie's in there. Because the first one, I was at the first one. He inducted Bobo.
That's right. Great speech, too.
I think the Iron Sheik gets the trophy for the greatest Hall of Fame speech, but Ernie Ladd is right there, just number 2. That was wonderful.
Honorable mention to Larry Zbyszko about Bruno. Well, now that was his acceptance speech, not an induction speech. But Larry's acceptance speech was really, really nice.
Very good.
Yeah. So Arion stays in the WWF for all of 1967. So I looked in WrestlingData.com again. He wrestled in 167 matches that had an actual outcome, and I only saw him losing 4 singles matches, 2 to Tanaka and 2 to Hans Mortier, who was going very, very strong in 1967. And I know at least one of the Tanaka losses was by DQ. I would venture to say that all 4 of the losses were probably like DQs or countouts.
And for people that don't know, Hans Mortier was a big bastard. He was near 300 pounds, and he wore that headpiece. I like a semi-helmet almost.
Almost like the old fighter pilot hats, helmets, right? Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. Many great battles with Bruno, but he was tough.
Was his brother was the brother Max? Because it wasn't Hans and Max Mortier. I don't know if that was earlier. Yes. I think it was.
That's outside of my line of expertise, but I do know.
Yeah, I just have vague, and I remember Mortier when I started watching in '68 was managed by Wild Red Berry, who was still around.
Well, that when I was still with the police department before I got into wrestling, and I had to present that to get permission as a secondary job. And one of the bosses was like, "Oh yeah, with Hans Mortier," and he was going back in time because he was an older guy. And it's like, bing, I've said it before. Wrestling, when I talk to doctors, lawyers, whatever, and it comes up right away, comes the stories. People all want to tell you what it meant to them.
And these are educated people, professionals. These aren't,
Yeah. And it's funny, when I mentioned last week that I worked for a bond company, when I would go to the Civic Center in Baltimore, I would see people, but they were like, "No, don't say anything," that I was here. And I was like, what the hell? It's not like we're at some kind, back then, it wasn't a strip club. If you went to one of them dirty bars, it was something you really didn't want to talk about. But it's
Right.
like, what the hell? You're at a wrestling match. What's the big secret, you goof? But yeah, it was people, because they thought they were too educated to become involved with it. It's like,
Right. But he did win the U.S. Tag Team Championship in his 13-month stay, but from late '67 to early '68. He won it once with Pugliese, once with Arnie Skolin, believe it or not, and like you said, once with Bruno. Now, I believe I thought Rivera was the number 2 babyface in '67, but I don't think he hit the company yet. And Danucci was gone most of the year, so I'm thinking that in '67. Arion was the solid number 2 babyface.
Yeah, I believe that's true. And I've seen photos with Bruno and Arion visiting like a veterans hospital. And, they're shaking hands. And Arnie was with them too. Skolin would be behind him. But yeah, Arion was just like face, good guy till the hilt, without a doubt.
I mean, he was he became the Iron Greek, but back then he was the Golden Greek, and he was adored by the fans.
Yes.
Very quiet, not too much in terms of promo, but man, he did his talking in the ring.
A lot like Jim Londos. He had the moniker Golden Greek as well, but of course that was years before Spiros Arion hit the scene. But great. Yeah, without a doubt. And he used the atomic knee drop as his finisher before Bob Backlund was ever thought of.
Oh, yeah.
Before we heard the name Bob Backlund, Arion's finisher was the atomic knee drop.
He didn't do it the same panache, I would say, that Backlund did. I mean, Backlund would just lift him up and then, kind of cart him around for a little bit and then, take the run across the ring. Arion just lifted him up, put him down.
Yes. And I tell you what, it's no bullshit, because my wife's friend, it happened to her where she took a fall and she ruptured that tailbone. Or even if you just fall down, say like in the snow or whatever, it will paralyze you temporarily. So
I mean, if you legit execute the atomic drop, you're going to feel some pain.
Yes, and the key was those guys sold it. They didn't just jump up and go off to the dressing room that they were beaten. They laid there like they were half paralyzed, or like when they were putting Backlund over, Patera went out of the ring, got counted out. He crawled away. Superstar limped away. It's like, yeah, you just suffered what would put the layman probably in a hospital bed for a month. So that's how you do it, people.
Well, I mean, do they even have finishers anymore? Because like even what they have as a finisher doesn't always work anymore. I mean, back then, Bruno got you in a backbreaker. Nobody ever got out of that, or the bear hug.
No.
Patera swinging neck breaker. Nobody cut out of that. Nobody kicked out of Backlund's atomic drop, right? I mean, or the chicken wing.
I can't tell you about what goes on today, Benny, but I had the same question in a different way. What does a referee do besides a 3 count? Is there a DQ? Is there a count out anymore? I mean, does that even happen?
I even remember back in the day. I remember, was it '76? Watching when back in when I lived in New York, HBO would show the shows from MSG, and I remember that Kevin Sullivan, I think, got a referee's decision over Crusher Blackwell, and I was popping for that. And like, when was the last time you saw something like that? A referee's decision.
Well, yeah, and I tell you what, when Chief and Bruno they wrestled the Valiants. It was October the 4th of 74. And this was like Monday Night Football. It was, very popular. And it wasn't that old. It was kind of new. And the Jets were playing, and they're thinking, holy shit, we're going to get murdered tonight at the Garden. Oh, no, they weren't. Full house. But my point of the story is it was a split decision. The judges at ringside, and then the referee made his decision. So that was like, okay, Strongbow and Sammartino win, but the title can't change hands because it was this complicated process. And it's like, who the hell ever heard of that before? Even what we knew was, okay, referee's decision, but this was a judge's decision at ringside. It's like, wow, that was really neat.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember the last draw I saw. You'll occasionally see a count out or a DQ, but they're very few and far between. Every match ends with a pin. It seems that, and as far as a finisher goes, yeah, you might get pinned like on the sixth execution of your finisher, but like I said, nobody's getting out of Bruno's backbreaker. Nobody's getting out of Valentine's figure four. It's just not happening. Or Patera swinging neck breaker. It was a finisher. You were finished.
Yes. And you better sell it, because if you don't, they're going to sell you. You're out the door.
The only saving grace maybe was if you were in it and that the bell rang, and then like that was the time limit. Then
like the famous picture that I have with the Chief, he's got a bloody nose. He's got Patera in the sleeper. It was Superstar's first night with the belt, beating Monsoon, May 16th of 77, and the bell rang. The 20-minute time limit expired. But it's like everybody thought Patera was done in the sleeper, but that was the feud that just would not end, and it was great.
Right. Yeah. So January 68, Arion's back in Australia wrestling for Jim Barnett. He wins the IWA World Heavyweight Championship back within a matter of days, defeating Killer Carl Cox. Now, rumor has it that his wife, Cox's wife, always sat in the front row and wore a T-shirt that said, "I love Cox." I'm not sure if that's true or not, but
I love it.
But now he lost the title to some guy named Gorilla Monsoon on February 16th, regains it on March 22nd. But a win over Gorilla Monsoon, the heel Gorilla Monsoon, not the babyface, heel Monsoon in 68 was a huge thing.
Yes.
And this is reportedly his fourth reign with the title. He had a couple of brief runs in 65 when he broke in. And plus, in 1966, he defeated the Destroyer, the intelligent, sensational Destroyer, Dick Beyer, on October 29th. I mean, these are some legendary names he's picking up wins against.
Well, that's where Monsoon got the title, the Manchurian Giant, because they said it was from Manchuria. And when he wrestled with Tanaka, too, was what the heck were they? They were like a Japanese type team, because they said Monsoon, of course, Manchuria, and then Tanaka from Hiroshima. But sure, these are big names compared to what we knew in the 70s that you're beating. And it's like, you're establishing. Not that they were thinking that far ahead what they were going to do in 1974 and 5, but it's like you're established as legitimate.
Right. I mean, Monsoon and Destroyer are probably legitimately, and Stevens, right, are legitimately top 10 wrestlers in the world.
Yes.
And Arion's beating these guys.
Look how long Ray Stevens won one. It's a shame, because I wish he had a better push in 1982, but he was only brought in to put Snuka over and get that heat going. And it was like, okay, well, that was good, but I'd still like to have seen more of Ray Stevens. They just never handled him well in the Northeast, in my opinion.
One of my earliest wrestling memories as a fan is one of my first, I think, my first issue of Wrestling Review, which was actually my favorite of all the magazines. But there was an article about Bruno going to the Cow Palace and wrestling Ray Stevens in a 2 out of 3 fall match. And, and I was shocked when I read that Stevens pinned, the bombs away was his finisher. And he pinned Bruno. And I think Bruno made him tap out with the bear hug. And I think Bruno lost the third fall by count out. Yes. And there was a big controversy over whether or not, Stevens was the new champion. Of course he wasn't, but I mean, the fact that Bruno would go out there and put this guy over like that, to me, speaks volumes about how good he was.
Yes. Ray Stevens was a top talent. For the people that don't know about what went on the West Coast, he and Pat Patterson, that was it. They were the premier tag team without a doubt. And then when they feuded, it was like the Cow Palace was their equivalent to Madison Square Garden. That place sold out every time.
You know, again, you know, the younger people, they're going to remember the 82 version of Ray Stevens, which I think by then he was, I think, 47.
Yeah.
But, I mean, for years and years, he was considered one of the top workers in the business, correct?
Well, he actually scared a lot of the promoters because he was crazy. He would drive motorcycles. He would do crazy stunts. And in 82, like you say, 47, but he's taken some crazy bumps. He was not just there as a showpiece and then, you know, he'd just do a couple of rolls here and there. He was over the top rope doing all that crazy wild stuff. He gave you 110% without a doubt.
Right. Just one of the legendary names in the business. But now go to June 68. He drops the IWA title to the Great Baron Cicluna. I always say the Great Baron Cicluna because I want to embed in people's minds that the Baron Cicluna that you saw in 1981, maybe losing a Special Delivery Jones, was not the same Baron Cicluna who in 1966 main evented the Garden with Bruno, and I think went 26 minutes. And lost by a DQ, and only because he had Bruno in his hangman's hold, and Bruno kicked the ref. So, I mean, that's how good the guy was.
And against Pedro in 71 or 72, and it's like Cicluna, it's one of my favorite openers. It's a shame that that's how he's remembered, but Baron against SD Jones, that's one of my favorites. I'd give you $1,000 to see it again, not just on tape, but live. It's like, I love that. If you started the night off or with Johnny Rods and SD, it's like that's it, man. That's what you want. But they knew
I loved Cicluna and Dominic. That was one of my favorite matches. I always loved seeing them.
Yes,
always a good match.
Absolutely.
And they were probably they were closer than brothers, weren't they? Like.
Yes. Well, they ended up working for the New York Times years later. Davey O'Hannon, Johnny Rods, they all got in there with driving the truck and delivering the papers. So, yeah, they stayed close, but they were very close in body frame as well. Like Cicluna never looked balking, but he had, like we talked last week, like Kowalski, he had that ligament strength. And it's like, man, you think you're going to go in there and push this guy around. He's going to take that size 15 and stick it up your ass.
Yeah. He reminded me of a Clydesdale. He just was like very statuesque, you know, not like overly muscular, but you could tell the guy was physically fit.
Yes. Towards the very end in 83, I think is when Cicluna hung things up. He was starting to lose some definition, but a little, not a lot, but you could still see he never got fat. He always maintained a good physique. Same thing with Dominic.
He was what, 54 by then, I think, Cicluna?
At least, without a doubt. And people badmouth that, but it's like, why? This is what the man loves. He lived in Pittsburgh. He stayed close to home. He was able to travel about. Everything was still by car. Why not? He was a pro. That's what a pro does.
And like you said, I mean,
you do what they tell you to do. That's the pro.
But you're watching an MSG card, and the opener is Baron Cicluna against SD Jones. You're smiling at the end of that match. That's a great match. It's a great match every time.
Yes, and that Baron always grabbing his ear. You could hit him in the stomach. You could kick him in it, but he's grabbing his ear when he goes
step on his feet. He's
But then the geniuses out there say, look, he's grabbing his ear. He didn't hit his ear. It's like, no, asshole. He didn't grab his ear because he was hit there. That's how he just portrays his match. You're not smarter than the average bear. You didn't discover that Santa Claus is fake. No, that's just what Baron Cicluna does.
Yeah.
Jeez, people get me going sometimes. Don't use the F word around wrestlers.
We got a comment from Tom Jones. Not the Tom. Well, I guess he is the Tom Jones.
We know him.
Wants Joe Turco for the Hall of Fame. He's got my vote.
The continental nobleman from
Oh, yeah.
Catania, Sicily. Yes.
Another one, like never a bad match. Always entertained you, right?
And when you would see him, he had his mileage too. He had been around for a while, but Joe Turco, and I must admit, I saw Larry Zbyszko had some great respect. He wrestled a TV match with Turco in '77, and at the end of the match, he got him to submit in a bear hug. Larry laid him down. He didn't just drop him or flip. He laid him down. It's like, that's nice. That you should have some respect. Because Nikolai used to tell me, Turco in '77, it was near the end. The train was ready to pull into the station. He didn't want to get hurt. So it's like, we'll do whatever we need to, but please don't cripple me. I'm almost finished. As if you're not crippled enough, just in general.
Right, exactly. So when Arion comes back in September in the Northeast, he picked up right where he left off, goes undefeated the rest of the year, and he's picking up wins. And these are quality wins. Bull Ramos, Kentucky Butcher, George Steele, and Rocky Fitzpatrick, a.k.a. Bob Orton Sr. And by February '69, though, back in Australia. So, Nikita, what was the allure of the land down under? So you got guys like Danucci, Arion, Cicluna, Kowalski, Mark Lewin. They all spent a lot of time there. And even Mario Milano, the guy that I thought might replace Bruno, and he was a huge star in 1970, I guess it was, but he left in '71, never came back.
Nice place. You can talk to Tony Garea. He loves it down there, and they pay well. It's wrestling. You can live well on a lot less money. It's like, why not go down there? Go where the action is, and it's a pleasant place to be. You can't beat that.
Now, were they doing 7 days a week there? Was it a long, a lot of driving, or?
I don't know, but probably not, because I can't see that being a top wrestling draw there. But who knows? Hawaii was, and he would figure Hawaii, they don't have a whole lot like baseball or any football or anything like that. So, wrestling fits pretty well there. But, mostly people are not too many. Well, you have some people are living there, but most of it's tourist activity. And the last thing tourists are going to do is go to a wrestling match unless they're crazy like we are. And,
right. I think actually a lot of it, because of the geography, was flying, because you had Sydney, you had Melbourne, and then you had New South Wales, and then you had New Zealand. You're not driving to those places.
No. And of course, back then wasn't as expensive in terms of dollars and cents. But when you break down the mathematical equation of it all, it was stiff. It cost quite a bit of money, and a pain in the ass flying back then. And flying now is no pleasure unless you're going first class, if you got the money. But geez, those tin cans back then, the shit house was even smaller, I think, than it is today.
Do you ever see the movie Major League?
I don't think so.
Okay, about the Cleveland Indians, and they're flying, and the owner wants to make them start losing, so she makes life miserable, and she brings out their old jet from 1947, and this thing it's a tin can with wings, and they're all fearing for their lives. But I'm sure there was a lot of that then. Bruno told a lot of stories about a couple of the flights he took that he wasn't sure if he was going to make it or not.
Yes, it's not fun, but
no,
it's what it calls for.
They did, right? That's how they made their living.
Yes, without a doubt.
Yep. So after '68, now I have here, Arion becomes wrestling's version of the Fugitive. You don't see him wrestle in the U.S. for about 6 years, except for a very brief three-month run in California in early '71. And along the way, he captured the IWA World Heavyweight Championship for a 6th time, wins the IWA World Tag Team titles with Milano and Mark Lewin. And there was a newly minted, it's Australasian Heavyweight title. I think it was the IWA title, just renamed. He won that twice. I mean, this guy is definitely the goods. His career track, it's way different than any wrestler that I have ever researched, because you look at his record, you don't ever see him in Florida, Georgia, Mid-South, Mid-Atlantic, Amarillo, the Pacific Northwest, NWA Hollywood. this guy was either in with Vince McMahon Sr. Or the IWA. I really do think that he could have been a star anywhere, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. He had the size, he had the look, and the ability. And without a doubt, he could do it.
And he wasn't. He was very. I remember him being very quiet as a baby face, but I mean, you could be a quiet baby face back then.
Yeah, sure. Chief wasn't very boisterous on the interviews.
No, I mean, it actually gave an air of humility, and I think that was a good thing back then.
Tony Garea, the same. Putski was a little different. He was loudmouth, a little obnoxious. But yeah, most of the faces, they were quiet talkers. Dusty Rhodes was an exception. But
I mean, Pedro didn't say much.
No, Pedro, and you can almost recite
a few words.
Yeah.
I'm ready for any kind of action. Got a lot of confidence in myself, and that was pretty much it.
Yes.
And then
and even those big boys. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Backlund was so. I mean, talk about humility, the essence of humility.
Well, even he says in his book, he wasn't the greatest on interviews, but it was like, I think he got the point across. He did his talking in the ring, but he, especially in the beginning, very humble. And then it was kind of like the finish with Superstar. And I don't want to jump too far. I will stick with Arion, but this will tie in because then Arion becomes the challenger for Backlund. So Backlund's like, I want to give him, he said, I want to beat him fair and square. I had no idea I was looking at his shoulders. I didn't know his feet were on the ropes. Maybe it was. I don't know. I want to have a rematch, beat him fair and square. So it's kind of like, okay, that's good. Make some sense out of it. Don't just talk goofy bullshits all the time. Make it sound. And that's why I say Vince McMahon is the greatest television wrestling announcer ever. Because
doesn't get his just due. I agree.
No, he would deliver the match. You could listen, follow it. He would give you some facts, which made good sense. And then at the right moment, give you the excitement without screaming or becoming crazy about it. He was great. He knew how to do it. Yeah, he was part of the company, but he still, I say, was the greatest wrestling fan of all time.
But the interviews were so good as far as putting the matches over the upcoming Garden card or whatever card they were trying to sell. I mean, those interviews are solid gold.
And Nikolai told me, he would just do like this, pick up the paper. Okay, let's go. And he would do it right off the top of his head. And that's a lot of shit. Baltimore, New York, Philadelphia, Boston. And I mean, they just rattle them off the morning before the TV taping and one after the other. And they kept it, Vince especially kept it straight. And it just, because one time, Belomo, when he was new, he flubbed a little bit. And Vince was like, no, come here. Because he was going to walk off. He's like, no. Sometimes it gets a little bit nerve-wracking out here because it's like, we don't have time to do the shit over. We're going to do one take and that's it.
Right.
And so it's like, no, just, you're okay. Just let's go. Let's finish. Just stick with it. Let's get it done.
Yeah, I mean, and I think he called a very good match. Like I oftentimes I'll watch some of the old matches from the 70s. The announcing is very good.
Yes, he was spot on with it, and he started out as a ring announcer,
right,
at Madison Square Garden.
But he really sold the believability of the matches.
Yes,
he really did. But now, so Arion Spiros shows back up at the Philly Spectrum on October 5th, 1974, beats Johnny Rodz. 2 days later, he defeats Jack Evans at the Garden, goes the rest of the year undefeated. He picks up wins over guys like Evans, Bill White, Joe Nova. How did they lure him back after all that time?
More than likely money. I mean, that's the best company to work for on the planet, so why not? And they probably presented him the idea. This is what we want to do. Again, you're established with Bruno all these years, so it was just perfect. Arion's coming back, and you hadn't been around for a long time, so this is good. You're fresh. People probably won't remember you, but for those that do,
probably a lot of new fans. Since the last
without a doubt, and we can refresh what happened. It's in the record books. So it's probably like, yeah, we're going to make a lot of money with this angle. This is great. So it made sense initially. It's like, here's Bruno's good friend, Spiros Arion, who he saw on a world tour, decided bring him back home with him. But then they decide, you know what? We're going to team you with Chief Jay Strongbow. And it's like, we loved it as fans, but then it made sense later when they said Arion was put with Strongbow so Bruno wouldn't have to wrestle him. And it's like, well, that was bullshit, but it fit when you try. And some people did buy it, that it was trying to keep away from Bruno, because I'll tell you what, the Larry Zbyszko angle, which many call the greatest of all time, and it's pretty close, but this one, Spiros Arion, beats it for the simple fact that we feared he could beat Bruno. He actually could do it. He was about 6'2.5", 265. He could get it done. So with Larry, God love him, he sold it perfectly. He did it the way it needed to be done. That he'd be in and out of the ring, maybe kick Bruno in the balls and do a little choking here and there, eye gouging. But it's like, you're not going to beat him. But Spiros Arion could. We were worried he could have legitimately beaten Bruno.
Well, you were nice enough to give me some audio clips. I'm going to play these if I can. One is the first one's going to be Vince interviewing Arion and Jay Strongbow, and the other one's going to be Joe McHugh announcing their one of their tag team victories. So hang on here 1 second. Hopefully this goes all right.
Wait for it, people. It's coming.
Here we go.
Chief Jay Strongbow, and of course, that fool can run out here again. Alberto, do you hear us? You hear us? We're ready. We're ready to be expert. We're ready. This is only the beginning of the end. Chief and me were working. We're ready. For orders, you, Captain, for your complete destruction. I'll tell you, you two fellas here for the first time together on an all-star wrestling match. I need to clarify something. It's not the first time Spiros and I have been together. We wrestled in a different country as a team partner. When Spiros came here, we didn't feel that our timing was ready to team us up as a team. We worked in a gym all the time he's been here, and we're ready. That's when we get together with eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. Fire with fire. Well, I'll tell you. You want to wrestle, we'll wrestle you. You want a street fight? We'll pitch your brains apart. No doubt about it, you two fellas, judging from the ovation here from the crowd and the reaction, make a tremendous tag team combination. I feel like this. I thank every one of them out there. We feel that we owe something to them, and we're going to give it. We look forward to seeing you in the future. Spiros Arion and Chief Jay Strongbow join us next week, same time, same station.
All right, and here's one of Joe McHugh.
Beautiful.
Spiros Arion, victorious here, and let's get the official time. Ladies and gentlemen, the time, 6 minutes and 18 seconds, and here is your winners of two exciting wrestlers, Spiros Arion and Chief Jay Strongbow. Spiros Arion and Chief Jay Strongbow victorious over Joe Nova, Joe Rebel White. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Now that was Butcher Joe Nova was a 350-pounder. Years later was known as Butcher Brannigan on the West Coast. But he was a big man, and he was mostly there. He put people over on television, but still he had a good presence. Bill White, the same thing, good size.
Oh, yeah.
But look at that. You could hear the excitement in the fans. Spiros Arion and Chief Jay Strong, what a combination. Now,
well, that's really funny you said that, because in listening to those, the thing that struck me the most was, like you said, you could hear the emotion, the fans' emotions.
And who Arion was hollering, if you could pick it up, and sounded clear to me, Benny, that was great, about Albano. And it's like, because the Valiants were the tag team champions at the time. So this is the beauty of it all, how it's all set up. that technically, or the actual information, that was like the end of December when that was broadcast. I think it was the 28th, that Saturday. The next taping is when it all starts to unravel. Now, here they are. They're established. First, Arion comes back. You know, he's strong. Then put him with the Chief. They're on fire. It looks like, hey, man, they got somebody that can beat these Valiants. So the next taping, Arion's in the ring with Killer Kowalski. At the time, Kowalski would wear a hood a mask from time to time.
Right.
Others he wouldn't. The idea was when he wore the mask, he would slip a metal object in there, headbutt his opponent, and he gets the victory. So here's the match. Arion's undefeated as a single and tag team. He's in there with Kowalski. Kowalski he gets the object from the Wizard. He slips it in his mask. Well, the Chief hits the ring. He's going to save his partner. Right away, that's it. Ring the bell, disqualification, outside interference. So Arion's pissed now. He's like, he goes to Vince. He cost me the match. He is my partner. I was undefeated. What do you kind of call that? And Vince is like, I think we're going to. And Chief comes out. He says, he'll be okay. He's just excited. But I saw what was going to happen. I saw Kowalski. He had that in his head. I wasn't going to let him get hurt. So the next week, Chief and Arion come out. Arion's aloof from the Chief. They come out together. He won't tag him. Chief's not in trouble. He's able to win the match. Arion leaves the ring before the announcement. It's like, damn. So Vince is like, because we just got word. He's talking to Chief after this. Next week, you fellows are going to wrestle the Valiant brothers. Chief said, it's okay. We'll be ready for him. Don't worry. Everything is fine. Spiro's just a little bit upset. We'll be ready for the match. We're going to beat Albano and his Valiants. Now, Benny, you saw what happened when the Valiants wrestled the Chief and Arion.
Yeah.
Okay. And for the people that didn't see it, it's on YouTube. I'll let you know now. Somebody taped it with an 8mm camera off of the television. There's no audio, but if you go to YouTube, you can find it. The setup was perfect. Bruno's there at ringside with Vince with a white shirt on, blah, blah, blah. Or, Bruno's doing commentary. So the match is progressing. And yeah, Chief and Arion are doing great. So Chief gets a sleeper on Johnny. Jimmy comes in. Arion comes in. And all of the confusion, they shoulder block Chief, I believe Johnny did. So accidentally, Chief hits Arion, knocks him off the apron to the floor. Well, Arion gets pissed. He picks up a chair. Boom, he hits Chief with the chair. And it's like, what? Vince is going crazy. What just happened? Bruno comes, and then the Valiants, they're standing back. They didn't attack yet. Then Bruno hits the ring with his street clothes on, and his arm is stretched out like, what did you do? Why are you doing that? Then all of a sudden, Arion gives Bruno a boot, and then the Valiants attack, and then it's just like mayhem. Chief is cut. He's laying there with it. My sister, who became a nurse later, she's actually screaming, he's going into convulsions. The Chief is selling like crazy. And then they just start to rip Bruno's shirt off. And then it's funny because Albano's like, come on, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. But the Valiant stayed on him because you only want to get so much heat, and then you should bail out, because Nikolai taught me that. But they stayed on, and Lou almost ran in and grabbed them. But it was perfect. Arion leaves. He pats Albano, shakes hand with him, and it's like, what the hell did we just witness here? And look, people, if you don't understand what it meant to us back then, it was like watching your wife with another man. It's like, what the hell is
good
going
analogy.
on?
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, at that time, that was the most, I would say, dastardly heel turn we ever saw, right?
Absolutely. But you got the over on the Chief and Bruno both at the same time. I mean, man, that was booking genius. So then the next taping, and this was set up before Arion was scheduled to wrestle Larry Zbyszko on the January 20th card. Supposed to be a scientific match. This was before the heel turn. And of course, when it was taped, the third hour, it wasn't going to hit TV just yet. So you wouldn't know what the hell was going on until it aired the Saturday before the January 20th. So he almost kills Larry. I mean, it was brutal because Larry was pretty green, and Bruno had to actually come out and make the save because people. I was told, I wasn't there. People told me that were witness there that fans were actually screaming to stop the match, that it was a massacre, that Arion was he was brutalizing Zbyszko. Of course, he beats him, and then Bruno comes in to get Larry back to the dressing room, which set up February 17th, Bruno against Spiros Arion. And what I was told by Evan Ginsberg, a friend of the show, that Evan's father was a cab driver. The cabbies, they parked their cabs. People filed. I don't know how many they turned away. The Felt Forum was opened up, though. They had overflow capacity. People wanted to see Bruno get their revenge, but it was also, is Arion going to beat him? This is a real logical possibility that we could see Bruno defeated. Well, he didn't beat him, and Bruno went crazy, opened up area. I mean, Bruno, it was kind of like with the Zbyszko situation. In the beginning, they would lock up. Bruno would dominate. Arion goes to the ropes. Bruno would dominate. Arion goes. It's like, come on. Bruno's like indicating, like, what the hell? Where's your big? Come on, bring it on. You got it or not? So finally, Arion started stopping, but he got the advantage. Wouldn't let Bruno back in the ring. When Bruno gets in the ring, he goes crazy. Bust Arion open. They stop the match. Disqualify Bruno. He throws the ref aside. So then it's like, okay, now we're going to have a return match. Now, I just watched this a few days ago. It was St. Patrick's Day, the return match in 75. And I don't know what happened, but there were so many Italian flags there that night. Small versions. Everybody's waving their Italian flags. It was great. I mean, it was not big ones, small ones. And Bruno's just like shaking hands before he gets in the ring. And of course, Arion this was a Texas death match now. And, you know, Freddie comes out with doing his thing, and he gets the crowd ready for a riot. So it starts with, they're standing there getting checked over by the referee. And even Vince says, you know, Arion's a little close to Sammartino. Next thing you know, Spiros plays the right hand, knocks Bruno down. And it's like, uh-oh. Then the match has begun, and it ended with Bruno got a pin on Arion. Arion got his foot over the bottom rope. Ref didn't see it. We really shouldn't matter in a Texas death match anyway.
Right, yeah.
The
No rules, right?
They used to screw up Texas death matches to the hilt. It was like, there's no count out. What the hell's the referee counting? Or there were times where somebody would be counted out in a Texas death match. It's like, why the hell you do that? But anyway, it ended with Arion. He's laying there. It's like, hey, look, my foot is on the rope, you know. So that set up the next month, April 14th, the Greek death match, which means submission only. There's no pinfalls, no referee in the ring, because when they hit the ring for that one, Freddie, he was screaming for the referee to get out of the ring. It's like, oh, you know, he's got to check out, you know, he's got to do his regular routine. That one ended with Bruno of the half crab on Arion, and he got the submission. Arion tried to make the leap off the top rope, missed, hurt his knee, so they let him have some heat with that. And then Bruno finished him with the half crab, and it's like, beautiful. That was it for Madison Square Garden with Bruno and Arion. But then they went city after city. Steel cage matches at the Capitol Center, Boston, Pittsburgh, and I mean, it was just box office gold. Strongbow wasn't going to stay around too long, so he and Arion didn't get hot and heavy into their feud, especially because initially Arion was wrestling Bruno. So Chief was gone around August. He went down to Georgia. He spent a couple of years, stay closer to home. So they never really got that part of it off the ground. But Bruno and Arion went all the way to December 20th in Baltimore that year. I mean, other than that, they were hitting all of the other towns in between, all the big cities, not just towns, all the big cities. And it was like you had turn away crowds because it was just people wanted more and more and more.
Yeah. I mean, I have him wrestling Bruno in Philly, Baltimore, the Nassau Coliseum, New Haven Coliseum, Pittsburgh Civic Arena. I mean, everywhere. And he picked up some wins, albeit, DQ or count-out wins, but still, he did win some matches.
Well, Betty, you know better than anybody. Nassau was the B town to the Garden,
right.
But it was kind of like an overflow. Like, to give you, for instance, the Wolfman, Willie Fargus. I love him as better as Canadian Wolfman. He never got a match with Bruno in the Garden, but he wrestled him at Nassau. When Superstar was champ, he only had so many dates. So Chief, Zbyszko, Garea, Calhoun, they all got matches in Nassau with Superstar. It wasn't like a detrimental type thing. It's just, what are you going to do? You only have so many dates, and you only have it's one man. That's it. So that's what they would do. They would run it in Nassau, and it worked. So it's like, even though Arion and Bruno went 3 in the Garden, it's like, this still has legs. Put them in Nassau. Bring New York in for more.
I mean, it was a year and a half, and I mean, an absolutely epic run with Bruno. That was a hell of a run for him, wasn't it?
It was. And then, as you so eloquently put it, he does his disappearing act. He becomes the fugitive again. But he did come back for whatever reason. He was technically out. He was not on television. He had finished all his bookings in December when they had that gale storm on February. No, that was actually a snowstorm, February 2nd of 76. He comes in substituting for Pat Barrett against Kevin Sullivan, because that was wild, because even Vince said, we have a guest appearance. The Iron Greek has returned, Spiros Arion, because by this time, we went from Golden Greek to Iron Greek. Now,
right.
Big monster bad guy. So it's like, for whatever reason, he picked up that payday. He must have still been in the country, obviously. They sure as hell, the bean counters weren't going to fly him in from Greece or Australia for that.
Right.
They would scratch the damn match before they did that.
He kind of came back for good in late 77, did a couple of TV tapings.
Yes.
Now, I'm not sure how that WrestlingData.com is fairly accurate. They have him, I guess, a TV match. He loses by DQ to a guy named Dennis Johnson.
Dennis Johnson, yes.
Who's Dennis Johnson?
Well, he was, and I hate the word jobber, so he was enhancement talent. Television.
Was he a local guy for wherever?
That area, tri-state area, because he was at the Battle Royal in the Capitol Center on December the 5th that year. So, if you needed to fill the card, you'd bring him in. But I know, I've seen that in other, I remember it, and I see it in other listings. It was at DQ. That was Hamburg, too, by the way. That wasn't Philadelphia. It was Hamburg. Nevertheless, it hit television. I'm not sure who the referee was, but if it was not Wee Willie Weber, but Lou Supa, if it was him, that idiot, God, I'm sorry, but that guy was out to lunch. He didn't know what the hell was going on. He may have called for a DQ, and that wasn't supposed to call for one. Right. He was a little bit goofy. So it's like, okay, whatever, DQ. It ain't going to hurt Arion any. So he's strong. And then we have the title change with Backlund on February 20th. So they already had the first. Here's a little bit of a weird situation. Arion against Backlund twice in February, once before Backlund is champion, and then the 21st, the 22nd, actually, after the title had changed hands, a dark match. Backlund wins once on disqualification, second time with the atomic knee drop on a count out. It's like, okay, it wasn't on television, but the people in Hamburg obviously knew what the hell was going on. And then they were going to wrestle in Philadelphia on March 25th. And they did. Backlund's very first appearance at the Spectrum. Because Vince made a big deal about that. Okay, new champion, your first night at the Spectrum, and you're wrestling a man who legitimately can defeat you, Bob Backlund.
Right,
and it's
right.
Like, he's humble. I agree. He has a lot of good history, and he's a good scientific. And Vince is like, that's right. Not only is he a rule breaker, he was an excellent scientific wrestler. And he uses the atomic knee drop, much like you do. Now, at the Spectrum, the first match, in Backlund's initial appearance, when he lifts Arion up for the atomic knee drop, Dick Worley gets hit with the legs, knocked down. So then here comes Strongbow Maivia. Here comes Stan Stasiak and Cicluna. So it ends up in a big double DQ. And in fact, somebody tried to get the Stasiak from the fans. They didn't have the guardrails up. They hit him on the leg, and Stasiak is like, he would have killed the guy because, you know, they used to call him Crusher Stasiak years ago. And then for good reason, he was a big, big man.
Oh, yeah.
So they settled that. But then Arion became, I think if you go back and look, he probably wrestled Backlund almost as much as anybody in 78. And it was just like Arion and Backlund. Because in Baltimore, and I didn't know this until my wonderful publisher, Scott Teal, told me, because Ken Patera was scheduled for the May 6th match with Backlund. And we were all excited. But then what happened was the night of, and this is the first time they'd done it, where they actually told you before you got to the arena that, well, there's been a shuffling of the card, as Vince put it. Bob Backlund's been training for Ken Patera all these weeks. Now, tonight, between Lou Albano and Fred Blassie, the contracts have been switched, and he will be facing Spiros Arion. So how will this play out tonight? Will this confusion cause Backlund to lose? And it's like, wow, that was interesting. He beats Arion, atomic knee drop count out, but they brought him back for the original scheduled match on August the 26th. And he won with a clean pin that night with the atomic knee drop. But they wrestled at the Garden one time on June 26th, but here you go again. 3 times with Graham. Patera did meet that commitment because he decided, screw you, you didn't put the belt on me. He went back to the Mid-Atlantic. So he didn't meet that commitment May 22nd, but then June 26th, Arion gets his one shot, and then they go right to Koloff. And then it was Ladd, and then Maivia. So it was like, again, they wrestled at Nassau, Backlund and Arion, but you only had so much time in the Garden, so that was it.
They didn't have the trilogy like he had with Bruno.
No, and they could have, without a doubt. But again, you didn't have that kind of heat, without a doubt. I mean, it was Backlund, yeah, the new champion, and a man that could beat him, but there was no way it wasn't even close to the heat storm that they
no
had.
But I mean, I honestly think that, you know, back then, and you know, when he first turns, it's a betrayal on, even though he turned on Chief, it's a betrayal of Bruno as well. So, you know, it was very personal. Where with Backlund, it was nowhere near as personal. No, not without a doubt. No, not even close. But it's still a good match. But they did that stupid thing. And Backlund was pulling on Arion's leg. He had control. And then he falls back and he like hooks himself with the rope. And it's like, that's dumb. Or he actually falls out of the ring. It's like, why the hell do you need to do that? That's silly. It actually looks stupid, in fact. But yeah, whatever. That's how they played the match. And then Arion hit Backlund with the atomic drop. Backlund kicks out. Then he tries it a second time. Then Backlund goes behind and his atomic knee drop. He's able to put Arion away with it. But, I mean, all in all, another great run, right? Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because I'm going to tell you, he wrestled 20 minutes with Mascaras at the Spectrum and the Garden. Actually, before he got the match with Backlund, he won 20 minutes with Dusty Rhodes. Right. It was the night of the cage match with Superstar and Backlund, and it's a damn good match. It really is. They went back and forth. And Arion, he was a master because against Rhodes, and then he did it against the Chief when they wrestled on December the 18th in the Garden, Arion's final farewell completely to the WWF. He would do that stomp. I guess, like I say, I think he had a size 15. Of course, the front of the shoe, it's just like this. You know, it's touching you. But when the heel hits the mat, it's like, man, he's crushing the guy's hand. He did that with Rhodes. Rhodes sold it to the hilt. He did it with Chief with his arm. And it's like, man, it looked like he's killing the guy. Oh, yeah. I got to tell you, this story, he wrestled Ivan Putski in Baltimore on July 22nd of 78. And I'm sitting at front row ringside. I'm looking up as this happens. Of course, Putski's dominating because Putski at that point
he was really trimmed down. He went from 300 pounds. He came back at that point in 78. He was down to like 265 and it was looking good. He came next year even better. But everything Arion tried, Putski would just dominate him with strength, shove him off. So Arion gets him in a headlock. They're on the side. And it looks to me, I call it a protractor. I've been told that I'm wrong. But whatever that pointy thing is where you make the circles with, that's what it looked like to me. Arion took it out. And it wasn't a blade job. He's stabbing Putski in the head with this. And then the blood starts to pour. Naturally, Putski falls over the top rope. He's counted out. Well, Daddy-O, it started. An old man, because Putski was a favorite in Baltimore. Baltimore was a Putski town. This old guy started it with a chair. He came. They intercept him. Then they all start coming from this direction, that direction. The guards did a great job. They kept intercepting everybody. But this one poor bastard gets through, and he nails Arion in the back with a forearm. Arion turns around and says, motherfucker. And it's like, uh-oh. The guy starts running. The poor bastard trips and goes down. Oh, Arion starts putting the boots to him. He's got blood coming out of his ears, his nose, his mouth. The guards just scooped up Arion, and they just rushed him off to the dressing room. They just carried him away because it was like, I think they're going to start tearing up the building in a minute. So Bobo was on the card that night. He hadn't been in town for a year. Him and Tony Garea were wrestling the Lumberjacks. They ushered those two out quickly. It's like, okay, settle the fans down. Send Bobo out there with Tony Garea. You got to calm the house down, or we're going to have it torn to the ground. So Arion, he had a good run in 78. He was scheduled for more matches in 79, the early part of 78, especially he and Victor Rivera made a hell of a tag team in 78. Because the big heel turn with Backlund and Maivia, that's the team that Backlund and Maivia were wrestling when it all took place that night.
Right.
And they were a hell of a team, without a doubt. But that was it. After December 18th, Arion, because he missed Baltimore, he was supposed to wrestle the Chief on the 28th. I was crying tears. It's like, damn, Arion didn't show up. They had him scheduled for the Capitol Center. Didn't show up for January. He was basically gone after that. And never, ever returned.
No. He showed up in England in September of 79, wrestled there for sparingly, not a lot, but apparently caused a near riot. He beat up some chubby guy named Colin Joynson. You can see the video on YouTube. And the last match, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I got to see it.
Yeah, very, very good clip. And he's a little bit older. His hair's a little bit longer. You know, you can tell he aged a couple of years, but still, you know, same heat. But he wrestled his last known match in Banbury, England on February 6th, 1980. I don't think the guy was even 40. Why do you think we never heard from this guy again?
I think he was smart with his money. And, you know, physically it takes its toll. And I think he was homesick. He wanted to go back to where he was more comfortable, and that's what he did. But his interviews were classics, especially when he first turned in 75. And he and Fred Blassie, like I said, they were surrounded by the security guards. It wasn't this Monday Night Raw bullshit where guys that are wannabe wrestlers are dressed in costumes. These were real security because they were afraid. And he got stabbed in Philadelphia, too. Going back to the ring or to the dressing room at the Philadelphia arena. He got stabbed in the chest. Frank Amato had reported that. He made a nice story about it. And or John Arezzi, I'm sorry, it was John Arezzi's story. So it's like he could get the heat, but when he and Freddie were out there with that first heel interview after the big turn, and I loved it where he said, I want all the geeks in the parade, Strongbow, ho, Garea. And then he said, you know, to make money in this business, you have to walk over dead bodies. And it's like, holy shit, that was it. Everybody, if they didn't want to already rip his limbs out, they wanted it at that point.
Yeah, it turned from like shock and disbelief to absolute hate.
Yes. And I mean, I've said it 100 times. You can't make people like you and you can't make them hate you. No matter what the company does, they can get behind you. They can make videos. They can play music. But if it's not there, it's not there. But he had another great line in '78 with Blassie during an interview, and they were talking about being humble, and Vince said, "Well, Mr. Arion, do you try to be humble?" He said, "I cannot be," and Vince says, "Well, why?" Because nature very cruel to me. She left me no room for improvement, and Vince had to turn away because he was ready to laugh. And it's like beautiful. I love that.
Great line, though.
Yes, I love that. That was great.
Yeah,
and he would wear either red or black trunks. Nothing to do with his status. It just, what he would wear. And look, you wanted a presence, Spiros Arion, put him in there because this guy's got the ring presence.
Yeah, I mean, always a great match. Just he got it done.
Yes.
And in my opinion, when you talk about great heels, he should always be mentioned in the conversation because he really,
yes,
and especially with his background, he was literally the Golden Greek. He was idolized by the fans. He didn't have Bruno popularity, but he was pretty damn popular. And
like Chief, number 2.
Right.
You're not number 1, but you're number 2. And the only main event in the Garden you're going to get is with Bruno as a partner. Fine.
Yeah.
Accept it. Everybody loves that. But the established history between Bruno and him, and that's why, you always hear about the Hall of Fame, that who's in it, who's not in it. And it's like, well, you know what? Since there's no physical building, who cares? We know he's in our Hall of Fame without a doubt.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
We're still having a passionate discussion about it. And I'm hoping that people that are watching this feel the same way. And that because that clip alone that you played, I think that's gold. That's just great to hear those two together. And it just goes to show, like recently, and I'm going to give another plug to Mike Monty when he interviewed Jimmy Valiant just a few days ago, the Boogie Woogie Man. And Boogie said, the thing that got me over was they put me with Strongbow, who was the number 2 man in the company. Yep. Senior said, because he said, I wanted to be a heel. And Senior said, not yet, but in 6 months, I'll make you a heel. And he said, always to the day. And he said, it was with Strongbow. And it's the same thing. Eric, you want to get somebody over, have them turn on Chief. And then Chief and Bruno, stop the train, let me off because this baby's on fire.
Right. Yep. I hear you. So, Nikita, this hour went way too fast. And even though we visited the dark side, this was a blast. I really like this.
Oh, I loved it. Yes.
Just one of those guys that you never get tired of talking about. You never get tired. I mean, I can go, after we're done, I'll probably go watch a couple of his matches and a couple of his promos. You never get, and like we're talking 50-year-old matches. That's still, right? I mean, and they're still entertaining.
And people will probably, if they had enough alcohol in them, would probably want to fist fight you over some of this, even 50 years later. And it's like, that's great. You got to love it.
Oh, yeah. So I want to thank everybody who joined us tonight for When It Was Real. And we have some great stuff planned for you. So please hit the like and subscribe button so you won't miss any episodes on this great Monte the Pharaoh YouTube channel. And like Nikita said, there's a treasure trove of excellent content here. Just, as an example, the recent interview this past weekend with Jimmy Valiant. And we will be back next week to take you on another awesome trip in the Wrestling Wayback Machine. So for the great Nikita Brezhnikov, this is Benny Scala, the one and only player, also the poet laureate of the Monte and the Pharaoh channel, leaving you with this. When wrestling nostalgia you crave to feel, tune in on Wednesdays for When It Was Real. Let us take you back in time. You're guaranteed to feel sublime. Good night, folks.